The Varaha Purana Part 2 Vaishnavi Devi Om Namo Narayana Klim Krishna. The universe is divided into 14 regions or lokas. 7 of these form the upper region and the remaining 7 form the underworld, Patala. The 7 regions of the upper world are Bhurloka, the S, Bhuvarloka, Svargaloka, Heaven, Maharloka, Jnanaloka, Satyaloka, and Tapaloka. When there is a destruction at the end of a kalpa, Bhurloka, Bhuvarloka, and Svargaloka are destroyed. The remaining 4 regions, however, continue to exist. They are only destroyed at the time of the final destruction. Men populate Bhurloka, birds Bhuvarloka, the righteous and the meritorious Svargaloka, and the great sages land Maharloka. On the earth there is a mountain named Mount Mandara. The goddess Vaishnavi, Devi, decided that she would not marry. She therefore went to Mount Mandara and began to meditate there. One day, Vaishnavi Devi's concentration was slightly disturbed, and millions of beautiful women were created from this disturbance. Vaishnavi Devi constructed a palace for this minor goddess, and began to rule over them just as the moon rules over the stars. Narada was on his way to pay a visit to Brahma, Indra and other gods. He stopped by the palace and was struck by the beauty of Vaishnavi Devi and the other goddesses. There was a terrible demon named Mahishasura, and Narada immediately saw a way of bringing about the demon's downfall. Mahishasura lived in a grand city that he had built on the shores of the ocean. Narada went there and told Mahishasura the news of Vaishnavi Devi's great beauty. Mahishasura decided that such a beautiful woman was fit to be the wife of him alone. He sought the opinion of his advisers, and it was decided that a messenger should be sent to Vaishnavi Devi with the message that the king of the demons wished to marry her. The advisers did advise against the use of force right away. But this part of the advice Mahishasura did not accept. Together with the messenger, he sent a gigantic army under the generalship of the demon Virupaksha. The gods sent an army to fight with the army of the demons and protect Vaishnavi Devi. But the gods were easily defeated and the demons were triumphant. The messengers, whose name was Vidyaprabha, went to Vaishnavi Devi and told her that Mahishasura wished to marry her. Could there possibly be a better and more worthy husband for her? Vidyaprabha also told Vaishnavi Devi about the origin of Mahishasura. The terrible demon Viprachiti had a daughter named Mahishmati, who was exceedingly pretty. Mahishmati once went on a trip to a lovely valley with her friends. There was a pleasant hermitage ashrama there, and Mahishmati thought it might be a good idea if she could acquire the hermitage. She therefore adopted the form of Shibufala Mahishi so that she might scare the sage who owned the hermitage away. The sage was initially a bit frightened at the sight of the she-buffalo, but through his mental power he realized that this was only Mahishmati in disguise. He therefore cursed her that she would remain in the form of a she-buffalo for 100 years. Mahishmati pleaded with the sage for mercy and consented to make the conditions of her curse slightly less stringent. The new conditions were that Mahishmati would remain in the form of a she-buffalo until she gave birth to a son. The birth of her son would herald her release from the curse. The she-buffalo began to live on the banks of the river Narmada. After some years had passed, the waters of the river were charged by the powers of the sage Sindhudvipa. The she-buffalo happened to bathe in the water. She now gave birth to a son. The son she bore was Mahishasura, the terror of gods and the men alike. It was this Mahishasura who was not asking for Vaishnavi Devi's hand. But Vaishnavi Devi scorned the offer. She made it known through her attendant Vijaya that there was absolutely no question of Mahishasura marrying her or any of her companions. Mahishasura then made plans to capture the goddess. Vaishnavi Devi and her companions came out to fight the army of the demons. With the devils upon, they started to fight with the demons. Vaishnavi Devi adopted a 10-armed form so that she could fight better, and the demon army was soon put to flight. Mahishasura himself came to fight with the Vaishnavi Devi. Then and the fight went on for 10,000 divine years. Eventually Mahishasura was forced to flee, but the goddess pursued him astride her lion. She finally caught up with the demon on the 100-peaked mountain known as Shatashringa. She pressed Mahishasura down with her feet and cut off his head with her spear. Because Mahishasura was killed at the hands of Vaishnavi Devi, he went straight to heaven. The gods were relieved to be freed from the depredation of such a terrible demon and sang a hymn in praise of the goddess. The chanting of this stotra cleans our sins and brings us success. The name of the hymn is the Devi Stotra. The goddess who killed Mahishasura is there referred to the Durga and not as Vaishnavi Devi. The goddess Rudrani was meditating in the Nilgiri hills. Rudrani is again identified with the Durga. There was a powerful demon named Ruru. He lived in Jewett place circled by the sea on his side. Ruru performed very difficult tapasya and managed to please Brahma. Brahma then granted Ruru the boon that even after he died, his head would not fall down on the ground. Armed with the powers obtained from Brahma, Ruru set about oppressing the universe and conquering the three worlds of Bhurloka, Bhurvarloka and Svargaloka. He drove Indra out from his capital of Amaravati. Ousted from the heaven and scared out of their wits, Indra and the other gods went to the Nilgiri hills and began to pray to Rudrani. The goddess assured the gods that she would take care of Ruru. She roared with laughter, and from this laughter were born terrible goddesses who became Rudrani's companions. This army armed with itself with all sorts of weapons and attacked Ruru and his cohorts. The demon soldiers were no match for Rudrani and her companions and were soon put to flight. Rudrani herself killed Ruru and held his head up in the air, transfixed to her spear. In this form Rudrani came to be known as Chamunda. The gods sang Rudrani's praises. The particular hymn that was used is known as Triprakara Stuti, and its chanting pleases goddesses like Saraswati, Vaishnavi Devi and Rudrani. Its recitation helps overcome obstacles and purifies things. The Varaha Purana also informs us that Rudra or Shiva presides over 9 crore Rudranis and 9 crore Vaishnavi Devis. A vrata is a religious rite. There are 3 vratas in a particular whose observance pleases Rudra no end. These 3 are known as Kapalika Vrata, Babhravya Vrata and Shuddha Shaiva Vrata. Brahma originally had 5 heads. After Brahma created Rudra, he took Rudra up on his shoulders. With his 5th head, Brahma started to chant a hymn to Rudra. The hymn contained the word Kapali, which means the one with a skull, Kapala. Rudra's appearance was rather strange, and he thought that Brahma had used the word Kapali to make an insulting reference to his ugly looks. This angered Rudra. With the thumb of his left hand, he loosened Brahma's 5th head from the creator's shoulders. But the loosened head stuck to Rudra's thumb and would not come off. After several futile attempts to get rid of the head, Rudra resorted to Brahma himself for advice as to how the head might come unstuck. Brahma advised Rudra to observe the Kapalika Vrata. Rudra went to mountain Mandara. He cut the head into 3 parts, separated out the hair and wove it into strands so that he might wear it like a sacred thread round his body. He visited holy place, bathed in sacred waters and continued to meditate. Finally he gave up the sacred thread and shed off all his clothes so that he was completely naked. In this state, Rudra arrived at the city of Kashi, Varanasi. As soon as he bathed in the waters of the Ganga in Kashi, Brahma's severed head came unstuck from Rudra's thumb. Such is the wonderful sanctity of the holy city of Varanasi. Brahma now appeared and announced that the rite that Rudra had observed would henceforth be known as Nagna Kapalika Vrata. This Vrata helps achieve objectives and even cleanse the sin of killing a Brahmana. The bow now told Prithvi the story of the sage Satyatapa. Satyatapa meditating in the mountains that were to the north of the Himalayas. One day the sage lost one of his fingers while he was chopping wood. Wonder of wonders, instead of blood issuing from the wound, only ashes came out. Also the sage simply replaces the severed finger and it got attached to his hand again. A Kinara couple lived in a tree near Satyapata's hermitage. The Kinaras were a semi-divine species, half horse, half man. The couple marveled at the sage's power and went and reported the incident to Indra. Indra and Vishnu decided that they would test the extent of Satyapata's powers. Vishnu transformed himself into a huge bow that had been pierced by an arrow and began to wander around the hermitage. Indra transformed himself into a hunter and came to the hermitage. "Have you seen an injured bow around this place?" asked Indra. "I shot it with an arrow, but it ran away. I have to kill the bow, otherwise my family will starve to death." Satyatapa faced a dilemma. There was the question of saving the bow's life, and he could not very well reveal its presence. On the other hand, there was the problem of feeding the hunter's family. Satyatapa decided that every living being should do what is appropriate for it and nothing else. This was also true of every part of a living being. For example, it was the task of eyes to see, but it was not the task to speak. And it was the task of the mouth to speak, but the mouth could not see. What this meant was that Satyapata had seen the bow with his eyes, but the eyes could not report the presence of the bow. And while he could tell the hunter about the bow with his mouth had not actually seen the bow. Satyatapa therefore decided that he should remain silent and not respond to Indra's question. Learning of this resolution, Indra and Vishnu revealed themselves to the sage and blessed him. Satyatapa and his guru Arun attained salvation and merged with the Brahman. The bow next told Prithvi about various rituals that are appropriate for worshipping Vishnu. The 12th day, Dvadashi, of the lunar fortnight, in the month of Kartika is particularly auspicious for this purpose. So are the days of lunar eclipse. But do not forget to gift some rice on the occasion. One is a bow. Otherwise your predicament will be no different from that of Shveta or Vinitashva. Shveta was the king of Ilavrita Varsha. He performed numerous sacrifices and gifted a lot of jewels, gold, horses and elephants. His priest Vasishka did advise him to donate some rice as well. But Shveta did not take this advice seriously. When Shveta died, he went to heaven as a result of all the good deeds he had performed on earth. He roamed the bright celestial worlds and associated with the apsaras, dancers of heaven. He got a lot of good food to eat, but he never got any rice. Shveta's craving for rice became unbearable. He returned to the earth and to the place where his funeral ceremony had been performed. The ashes were still on the funeral pyre, and Shveta began to lick these remains so as to assuage his craving. One day Vasishka happened to come there and witnessed the pathetic sight. He explained to Shveta how this was a consequence of his never having donated any rice. Now, how could he hope to obtain after death what he had never given to others? Vasishka also told Shveta the story of Vinitashva. King Vinitashva had been advised by his priest to donate sesame seeds, water, cane juice, and the jaggery molded into the shape of a decorative cow. Alternatively, this object could be placed in a pot and donated, the pot being conceived to be cow. These gifts should also be accompanied by the offering of other food items, gold, jewelry, footwear, and umbrellas. Vinitashva had, however, ignored all this advice and had no suffered pangs of hunger in heaven, just as Shveta did. The bow explained to Prithvi the great merit that comes from donating a cow. A healthy cow, especially one about to give birth, should be washed, decorated, adorned with the jewels, and then donated to a worthy recipient. Such a worthy recipient would be a power but righteous Brahmana. Through the observance of these rituals, Shveta's sins were forgiven and he attained deliverance. The Bhava also says that all that has so far been related constituted the Varaha Samhita parts of the Varaha Purana. It was first expounded by the Brahman and then spread gradually through Brahma. From Brahma the knowledge progressively passed to Puvasya, Parusharama, Ugra and Manu. Vedavyasa, the composer of Puranas, will expound it in the future, and the knowledge will spread through Vamaharshana and Shaunaka. He who reads and worships this text on Dvadashi in the month of Kartika attains all his desires on heaven and on earth. The sage Sanat Kumara once asked the ass to recount the story of her rescue at the hand of the Baal incarnation. When the ass sank to the underworld, she appealed to Vishnu to save her. The hymn that she used to know is as Keshava Stuti. It delivers one from sin, poverty and childlessness, and leads to the attainment of Vishnu Loka, the abode of Lord Vishnu. On hearing the ass appeal, Vishnu reassured her and manifested himself in the form of a gigantic boar. The boar was 6,000 yojanas tall and 3,000 yojanas wide. The boars entered the ocean to rescue the ass. Such was the shock of the boar's entry that there were tremors on the earth and several mountains were dislodged and also fell into the sea. The boar discovered the ass in the world and raised her up on his task. That was indeed a grand and awe-inspiring sight. For 1,000 years the boar held up the earth on his task. When creation started again, the earth was placed in her appointed place. The boar told the earth that he was not particularly fond of rituals or ceremonies. He was easily pleased by simple obeisance, providing that it was performed with genuine devotion. To attain Vishnu's favors, one should wear white and worship him with the white flowers in a temple on Dvadashi. All the four classes were entitled to Vishnu's favors. A righteous and honest Brahman attains his favor as a matter of course. So can a kshatriya who is humble, a good host, a patron of good deeds, and a donor of gifts. The quality required of a Vaishyu are that he should be helpful and considerate to others, devoted to his guru, free from covetousness and lust, clean of habits and clean of heart. Shudras can attain Vishnu's favor if they pray with a pure heart, shun anger, lust, passion and evil, cultivate feelings of mercy and charity, have faith in a fast, and are devoted to Brahmanas. Vishnu favors one who worships him with a calmness and concentration, is a vegetarian, observes celibacy and other rituals on prescribed days, and of course keeps his mind free from jealousy, envy, pride and egotism. Vishnu disfavors and punishes those who have traits contrary to those prescribed. Examples of such sinners are those who are egotistical and proud, those who are rude to their guests, those who eat indiscriminately, and those who do not help others out even when they have the means. Whatever the class, Vishnu curses them and they are plagued by poverty and other sorrows. Vishnu blesses the content man and the devoted wife. There are some things which are abhorred by Vishnu, and the major ones are as follows. The eating of unclean things, worshipping Vishnu without bathing or after touching dead bodies and carcasses or after returning straight from the cremation ground, worshipping Vishnu when dressed in blue, red or black clothing, dirty and unwashed clothing or clothing belonging to others, worshipping Vishnu when in a state of anger, worshipping Vishnu after eating fish or dog's meat, partaking of food without offering some to Vishnu, worshipping Vishnu after eating asafoetida or drinking wine, eating or selling pork, going near a pond while wearing footwear, opening the door of a temple to Vishnu without playing auspicious musical instruments. How should respect to one's dead ancestors be paid? The sage Markandeya once discussed this at the great length with the Varaha. The number of generations who classify as ancestors is 7. To this one must pay one's respect. 4 of this ancestral generation are regarded as manifest, the remaining 3 being regarded as abstract. Material wealth is no constant on a funeral ceremony. Even if a pauper salutes his forefathers with the folded palms, the forefathers receive the benefits of full-fledged funeral ceremony. There are no restrictions on when a funeral shraddha ceremony can be performed. It can be performed at the time of the equinox, at the time of lunar eclipse, when unfavorable stars, nakshatras, are in the sky, and even after having bad dreams. But shraddha ceremonies performed on an auspicious occasion do bring a lot of additional punya. For example, if a ceremony is performed on the 8th day of the lunar fortnight, Ashtami, the ancestors are satisfied for 1,000 years. A brahmana, a sister's son, a father-in-law, a hermit and a disciple are all permitted to perform funeral ceremonies. But such ceremonies should not be performed by dealers of wine and other socially condemned people. They do not have the right. Invitation to the ceremony should be issued well in advance of the ceremony being held. But those who turn up uninvited should also be shown respect and fed. The direct fallout of a funeral ceremony is that the observer gets to remember his early birth. This is illustrated in the case of Gauramukha. This person had forgotten that he had been the sage Brigu in his early life. He was advised by the sage Markandeya to perform a Shraddha ceremony over a period of 12 years. Throughout this period, Gauramukha chanted a hymn dedicated to the 10 avatars of Vishnu. After doing this, Gauramukha remembered his early life and merged into the Brahman. Durjya incident took place in Satya Yuga. Durjya was the son of King Supratika and his wife Vidyuprabha. Durjya obtained both a boon and curse from the sage Durvasa. The boon was that he would be invincible, and the curse was that he would be hard-hearted. Swayambhuva Manu had two sons named Hetri and Suhetri. These two raised an army and tried to destroy all the gods. Vishnu, however, assumed innumerable forms and met this army on Mount Sumeru. He completely devastated Hetri and Suhetri army. Hetri and Suhetri were the only ones who were left alive. They fled to Mount Mandara. Hetri had a daughter named Sukeshi, and Suhetri had a daughter named Mishrakeshi. These daughters were exceedingly pretty. When Durjaya paid a visit to Mount Mandara, he encountered these two sisters and fell in love with them. He married them and had two sons. But Durvasa's boon, Durjya had become invincible. He conquered the three worlds and drove Indra out from heaven. Once Durjya went on a hunt and arrived at the hermitage of the sage Gauramukha. With King Durjya were the 5 battalions Akshauhini of soldiers, and this huge army had to be fed by the sage. This would normally have been an impossible task. Gauramukha had, however, obtained from Narayana a wonderful jewel named Chintamani. This jewel had the property that it immediately provided whatever it was that one wished for. Thanks to the possession of this jewel, Gauramukha could make provision for the entertainment of Durjya and his army. Their board and lodging constituted no problem at all. Durjya coveted the jewel which had such wonderful powers. He sent his minister Virachana to ask the sage for the jewel. But Gauramukha refused to part with such a prized possession. Durjya thereupon sent an army to seize the jewel. But when Gauramukha called upon the Chintamani to protect him, millions of soldiers emerged from the jail and easily defeated Durja's army. Virachana was killed. Hetri and Suhetri sent their armies to help Durjya. But Gauramukha called upon Vishnu. Vishnu destroyed Durjya, soldiers and all, with his Sudarshana chakra. Animation is a very small unit of time, the length of time it takes for one's eyelids to blink. Since Vishnu destroyed the gigantic army in a merely one nimesha, the forest where these events transpired came to be known as Naimisharanya. It is a sacred forest and Vishnu is also present there. Durja's death grieved his father Supratika, but Supratika did not waver from his faith in Vishnu. Vishnu was so pleased as this that he revealed the celestial form to Supratika. As for Gauramukha, he retired to a part of Naimisharanya known as Prabhasa and began to meditate there. It was there that he met the sage Markandeya. A Tithi is a lunar day. What of the soldiers who had come out of Chintamani at Garamukha's request. By Vishnu's grace, these soldiers became kings. Prajapala was a descendant of one such king. He once went to a hermitage and met a powerful sage named Mahatapa. Mahatapa told Prajapala about tithis. Certain tithis are especially fruitful. Worshipping or chanting of hymns of those days yield great results. The first lunar day is known as Pratipada, and this day is associated with the fire god Agni. At the time of creation, it was on the day that Brahma created Agni out of his own anger. Pratipada is therefore set aside for the worship of Agni. The second day of the lunar fortnight is a Dvitya. This day is associated with the worship of the twin gods, the Ashvinis, who are the physician of the gods. They are also referred as Ashvini Kumaras. Samjna, the daughter of Vishvakarma, was married to the sun god Martanda, but Samjna could not bear to stand her husband's radiance. She therefore created a shadow form named Chaya out of her own body. Chaya looked exactly like Samjna, so that it was impossible to tell the two apart. Samjna requested Chaya to assume her place in her husband's household. She herself went to her father's house, but Vishvakarma kept advising Samjna to return to her husband. Instead of doing this, Samjna went to the kingdom known as Uttarakuru and began to live there in the form of a man, Ashvini. After some time had passed, the sun god discovered the substitution. He sought out Samjna in Uttarakuru, adopted the form of a horse, and began to live with her. As horse and a mare, Martanda and Samjna had two sons named Nashatya and Dashra. Since they had been born when their parents had been in the form of horses, they were also known as the Ashvinis. Tritiya is the third day of the lunar fortnight. It is associated with the Rudras and is auspicious for Vrata. That is observed by married couples for the sake of obtaining marital bliss. Brahma created Rudra and asked him to perform the act of creation. Rudra, however, expressed his inability to do so, and Brahma advised Rudra to go and obtain greater powers through meditating under the water. Rudra meditating for 10,000 years under the water. After the spirit of meditation was over, he emerged from the water with a luminous body. He had now become powerful and could create as he willed. Dakshayani was Daksha's daughter. Daksha has organized a wonderful yajna, and many gods and sages had come to attend the ceremony. When Rudra emerged from the water, he found that the yajna was going on. "What is the yajna that is being held?" exclaimed Rudra. "Brahma had asked me to perform the act of creation, and I had gone away to acquire power so that I might create. Who then are all these people who have come to attend the yajna? Where did they spring from? Who created them? I will destroy them all. Why did creation take place in my absence?" Rudra roared in anger, and sparks issued from his ears. From these sparks were born first spirits, demons, and ghosts. These entities created havoc at the ceremony. They plucked out the eyes and knocked out the teeth of Khaga and Pusha, who were the officiating priests at the ceremony. Brahma asked the gods to pacify Rudra. They prayed to him and promised him a share in the sacrificial offerings. Rudra was appeased, and the yajna could proceed again. As a token of appeasement, Daksha's daughter Dakshayani or Gauri was married to Rudra. Daksha's daughter Sati or Gauri was married to Shiva or Rudra. Shiva, however, treated his father-in-law with scant respect. Or so Daksha thought. He therefore organized a yajna to which he did not invite Shiva. Sati turned up at the yajna, also she had not been invited either. Daksha seized the opportunity to hurl abuse on Shiva. Sati could not stand all these insults directed at her husband. Through her powers of meditation, she immolated herself and gave up her life. When the news of Sati's death reached Shiva, his wrath was aroused. He created a warrior named Virabhadra and dispatched him to destroy Daksha's yajna. When the ceremony was completely devastated, the gods prayed to Shiva and appeased him. Sati was subsequently reborn as Parvati, the daughter of the Himalayas, and married Shiva again. As for Rudra's taking part in the act of creation, the more customary account is that Brahma asked Rudra to create. But all the beings whom Rudra created were immortal, like himself. When Brahma asked Rudra to create mortal beings, Rudra flatly refused. Brahma thereupon asked Rudra to refrain from taking part in the act of creation. To return to the account of the Varaha Purana, Gauri was married to Rudra and lived with him happily. But after some days had passed, she recollected the insult that her father's yajna had meant to her husband. She went to the Himalaya mountain and through severe meditation yielded up the body which had become unbearable to her as it had stood witness to Rudra being insulted on the occasion of the yajna. Gauri was reborn as Parvati, the daughter of the Himalaya mountains. Parvati began to perform tapasya so that she might obtain Shiva Rudra as her husband once again. One day a keen and needy looking Brahmana came to Parvati's hermitage in search of alms. Parvati brought some food for the Brahmana. But prior to eating the food, the Brahmana went to bathe in a river that flowed near the hermitage. As soon as the Brahmana started to bathe, a crocodile came and caught hold of the Brahmana's leg. The Brahmana screamed for help. Parvati was in a fix. What should she do? The Brahmana needed help, but she was not her husband, nor was he her relative. She was not permitted to touch a man who was not related to her. Touching him would be sin. On the other hand, not helping someone who needed help would also be sin. In fact, if the Brahmana died, Parvati would be guilty of act of killing a Brahmana. After debating the pros and the cons, Parvati decided that she would have to help the Brahmana. Touching a man who was not related to her was the lesser of the two evils. But as soon as Parvati touched the Brahmana to pull him out of the water, the Brahmana revealed himself to be known other than Shiva in disguise. With Brahma blessing, Shiva and Parvati were married, and all the gods, sages, apsaras and Gandharvas, singers of heaven, came to attend the wedding ceremony. Since the wedding took place on Tritiya Tithi, Tritiya is sacred and Rudra should be worshipped on this day. Chaturthi. The fourth lunar day, Chaturthi, is associated with the worship of Ganesha or Vinayaka. The observance of a vrata and the eating of sesame seeds on this day leads to the acquiring of punya. Initially, all work deserving merit could be accomplished without any difficulty, but over time, difficulties become more common. The gods felt the need for a god who would remove obstacles to the performing of good deeds and would also restrain evil deeds. The gods requested Rudra to create such a god. Rudra created a wonderful being named Vinayaka from his mouth. But Rudra also created numerous other Vinayakas from the pores of his body. They were all identical in appearance with the first one who had been born. The gods and the sages could not decide who was to be the chief among all these Vinayakas. Brahma arrived at this juncture. He pacified the angry Rudra and decreed that the one who had been born out of Rudra's mouth would be the chief or the leader. The others would be his assistants and companions and would be known as the Ganas. The original one would be the leader, Isha or Pati, of the Ganas and would be known as Ganapati or Ganesha. The assembled gods and the sages anointed Ganapati with the holy water. Ganapati's birth took place on a Chaturthi and is why Chaturthi is sacred. Panchami. The fifth day of the lunar fortnight is Panchami. On this day, food should be avoided, and a snake should be worshipped with the offerings of milk. It is on this day that Brahma called the snakes together and sent them to the underworld. Brahma created all sorts of poisonous and harmful snakes. Examples are snakes like Ananta, Vasuki, Karkataka, Padma, Mahapadma, Kambana, Shankha, Kulika, Papa, Rajiva and Aparajita. These bites were full of poison and they could paralyze people with their glands. The snakes were destroyed people and the gods resorted to Brahma to find a way out. Brahma called the snakes to him and said, "As a punishment for destroying what I have created, you will be destroyed by your own mother. Your leaves will be wiped out." The frightened snakes pleaded for mercy. "We are certainly not responsible for the nature you have bestowed on us," they said. "Our nature was given to us by you, and it is our nature that compels us to kill people. You have made us venomous. How are we to be blamed for that?" The snakes pleaded with Brahma that they might be assigned a specific place to live in, so that they did not come into conflict with the humans. The underworld is divided into 7 regions, and 3 of these are known as Patala, Vitala and Sutala. Brahma decreed that the snakes could populate these 3 regions of the underworld. Brahma told the snakes that in another kalpa they would be born as the offspring of sage Kashyapa and his wife Kadru. Kadru and Vinata were Daksha's daughters and both of them were married to Kashyapa. Daksha's other daughters were also married to Kashyapa. Kashyapa offered his wife boons. Kadru desired the boon that she might obtain 1,000 powerful snakes as her sons. Vinata asked for the boon that she might obtain 2 sons who would be even more powerful than Kadru's sons. Kadru gave birth to 1,000 eggs, which hatched after 500 years. Vinata gave birth to the eggs, which showed no signs of hatching at all. In a fit of impatience, Vinata smashed one of the eggs. This untimely egg gave birth to a deformed son, known as Aruna. Since his mother's act had made him deformed, he cursed Vinata and she would have to be Kadru's slave for 500 years. But Aruna also assured his mother that the other egg, if allowed to hatch in time, would give birth to a son who would free his mother from the bondage that she would find herself in. Aruna then rose up into the sky and became the charioteer of the sun Surya. Uchashravasa was Indra's horse, and Kadru and Vinata once had a bet about the color of the horse's tail. "The tail is white," said Vinata. "Not at all," retorted Kadru. "You're mistaken. The tail is black." The tail was in reality white. Fearful of losing her bet, Kadru called her offspring to her. She asked them to coil themselves around the horse's tail so that the tail would seem to be black. Some of the snakes refused to aid Kadru in her untrustful act. They were cursed by their mother that they would be destroyed in Yajna, known as Sarpasatra. Having lost the bet to Kadru, Vinata became her slave. Meanwhile, Vinata's other egg hatched and a being who was half bird and half man was born. This being was Garuda. His eyes and claws were like birds of prey, his face was white, his wings red, and his body golden. Garuda obtained a boon from Indra that snakes would be his food. Garuda wished to free his mother from bondage. The snakes told him that Vinata would be freed if Garuda brought them Amrita, a life-giving drink, from heaven. After many adventures, Garuda did succeed in bringing the Amrita from heaven. These adventures are described in the Mahabharata. But instead of giving Amrita to the snakes, Garuda tricked them into licking sharp-bladed kusha grass. That is how snakes came to have forked tongues, and that is the reason why Garuda is anathema to the snakes. One should not get the impression that all snakes are cursed. Snakes which are not ill-natured do not bite good people and stay away from those who know as the Garuda mantra are blessed. These snakes are permitted to bite individuals whose appointed lifespans on the earth are over. The sixth day of the lunar fortnight, Shastri, is associated with the worship of Kartikeya. Praise to Kartikeya on such a day grants the devotee health and long life, and fulfill all his desires. It was on this day that Brahma appointed Kartikeya the general of the gods, in the long-standing battle between the gods and the demons. The demons had able generals like Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu and Viprachiti. The gods had none other than Indra, and the upshot was that the gods kept getting thrashed. Brihaspati advised the gods to get hold of a better general. In Puranas like the Shiva Purana and the Devi Bhagavata Purana, it is stated that there was a terrible demon named Tarakasura. He had obtained a boon from Brahma that he could be killed only by Shiva's son. That was the reason why Kartikeya had to be appointed the general of the gods. The Skanda Purana gives a detailed account of the battle between Kartikeya and Tarakasura. To return to the Varaha Purana, the gods, led by Brahma, went to Shiva so that they might obtain a general. Shiva and Parvati created a strong and handsome son known variously as Kartikeya, Skanda, Kumara or Pavaka. The gods warmly greeted this birth, and Brahma appointed Kartikeya the general of the gods. Saptami is the seventh day of the lunar fortnight, and associated with the worship of the sun god. The sun was extremely brilliant, and his radiance threatened to burn up all of creation. On Saptami day, the gods appealed to Surya to reduce his brilliance a little. The sun agreed to do this so that his world might be preserved. Ashtami. The eighth day of the lunar fortnight, Ashtami, is associated with the destruction of demon Anhaka. Anhaka was the son of Kashyapa and Diti. He had 1,000 hands, 1,000 feet, and 1,000 eyes. The word Anha means blind, but Anhaka was not blind at all. He was so proud that he walked about with the gait of a blind man. That is, his bearing was unsteady, and he thus came to acquire the name of Anhaka. By praying to Brahma, Anhaka had obtained the boon that no ordinary good would be able to kill him, and that his head would never fall down on the ground. Anhaka immediately began to oppress the gods. Plagued by the demon's oppression, the gods went to Brahma for deliverance. "I am sorry," said Brahma, "but I cannot help. It is I who have granted him the boon. I cannot kill him. Let us go to Shiva. Brahma and the other gods went to visit Shiva. While they were there, Anhaka came and surrounded Shiva's abode with a huge army. His intention was to kill Shiva and marry Parvati. A tremendous battle began between the gods and the demons, and the gods clearly had the worst of it. Shiva pierced Anhaka with a trident, but as blood started to flow out of Anhaka's wound, numerous other Anhakas were born out of these drops of blood, and they continued to fight with the gods. Shiva raised his trident up into the sky, and Vishnu tried to decapitate Anhaka, who was transfixed to the trident, with his Sudarshana chakra. But the demon did not die. Shiva now opened his mouth in anger. Flames issued from his mouth and took the form of terrible goddesses known as the Matrikas. The fire that issued out of the Matrika dried up Anhaka's blood and thus made it possible for the gods to kill Anhaka. Since Anhaka's destruction took place on Ashtami, that is set aside for the worship of the Matrikas. Navami. The next lunar day Navami is associated with Vetrasura and his death at the hands of the goddess Gayatri Devi. In the early life, Vetrasura fathers had been killed by Indra with a fawn, as he had obtained a boon that could not be killed by anything else. Also, the name of Vetrasura's father is not given. The fawn identifies him as the famous demon Vritra. In his next birth, Vritra remembered what had happened in his early birth. He meditated so that he might obtain a son who would kill Indra. The river Vetravati came to Vritra in the form of the woman. She married Vritra, and out of this union was born Vetrasura. Vetrasura became a powerful enemy of the god. The demon started off as the ruler of Prayojyotishpura in Assam, but soon conquered the entire world. He attacked the gods and drove them out of heaven. The gods went to Shiva, but Shiva knew Vetrasura to be invincible. Shiva could certainly not kill him. Shiva therefore led the gods to Brahma. Brahma was at the time seated on the banks of the holy river Ganga and chanting the Gayatri mantra, a sacred incantation. He was oblivious of all that went on around him and paid no attention to Shiva and the other gods. But a goddess named Gayatri suddenly appeared. She seems to have been a personification of the Gayatri mantra. The goddess had 8 arms and was armed with all sorts of weapons. She was clad in the white sari. Gayatri Devi fought with the demons for 1000 divine years and killed Vetrasura. Shiva sang her praises. When Brahma's meditation was over, he earmarked a place in the Himalayas for the goddess to live in. Since Vetrasura was killed on Navami Tithi, Navami is set aside for the worship of the goddess Gayatri. Dashami is the 10th day of the lunar fortnight. On this day one should eat only yogurt and worship the 10 goddesses who were created by Brahma on Dashami Tithi. These goddesses were born of the Brahma's ear, and these names were Purva, Paschima, Uttama, Dakshina, Urhva, Adhva, Agneya, Nairitya, Ishana, and Vayavya. These are also the names of 10 directions, namely north, south, east, west, up, down, northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. The 10 grooms to whom Brahman married these goddesses were Indra, Varuna, Kubera, Yama, Swayam, Sheshanaga, Agni, Niriti, Shankara, Ishana, and Vayu. Ekadashi. The 11th lunar day, Ekadashi, is the day when Kubera was born from the dust storm that arose within Brahma's mouth as he was thinking about the task of creation. Kubera was the concrete form that was adopted by the dust storm. He became the treasure of the gods on Brahma's instruction. A vrata should be observed on Ekadashi Tithi by eating only fruits and worshipping Kubera. Dvadashi. It was on the 12th day on the lunar fortnight that Narayana adopted the form of Vishnu at the request of the wind god Vayu. The Vishnu form has 4 arms and a conch shell, Shankha, a bladed discus chakra, and a mace Gada and a lotus Padma are held in the 4 hands. Vishnu also wears a divine garland known as Vaijayanti around his neck. Dvadashi was also the day on which Lakshmi became Vishnu's wife. Lakshmi and Narayana are to be worshipped on the Dvadashi Tithi, and on this day Brahmanas are to be fed clarified butter and honey. Trayadashi. The 13th lunar day Trayadashi is the day on which Brahma appeased Dharma, the god of righteousness. Dharma is identified with Yamaraja, the god of death. As the Brahma sat and thought about creation, the god Dharma was born from his right side. He was fair and had 4 feet, 3 horns, and was in the form of a bull. Brahma decreed that Dharma's duty would be to check that the humans stuck to the righteous path. As men become evil, Dharma would lose one of his feet. That is, in the Satya Yuga he would have 4 feet. But in Treta Yuga the number of feet would be reduced to 3, in Dvapara Yuga to 2, and in Kali Yuga to 1. Dharma would pay Brahmanas complete attention, but Kshatriyas would only receive 3/4 of Dharma's attention. Similarly, Vaishyas would only receive half of his attention, and Shudras only a quarter. The moon god Chandra was Dharma's brother. Dharma was Brahma's son, and so was the sage Atri. The Puranas normally state that Chandra was Atri's son. Thus, as per the other Puranas, Chandra could not have been Dharma's brother. Chandra once cast evil looks at Brihaspati's wife. Scandalized at his brother's shameful act, Dharma left for the forest in disgust. Lawlessness and evil prevailed everywhere on earth as the god of righteousness had gone away. Finally, on Trayadashi Tithi, Brahma appeased Dharma and brought him back. The 14th lunar day Chaturdashi is associated with Rudra. Fasting and hearing about Rudra on Chaturdashi frees one from all one's sins. Hari Om Tat Sat Om Namo Narayana.